Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Ultimate RoboCop Guide. My name is Woody. I'm going to be teaching you how to play RoboCop today. You might know me better as RoboCop over on testyourmight.com, where I write a lot about him. In fact, this entire video guide exists there in written form. So if there's anything you want to reference, or if you just like written materials more than videos, then here you go. I mean, everything I'm going to cover in this guide is covered in written form here. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with just the very basics, kind of the general outline of what RoboCop is as a character in this game, how he kind of plays, right? So you probably know, you've probably seen a lot of that, and he is a zoning character, but I don't know, I describe RoboCop as more of a hit and run style of character because you're not just going to be able to sit here and zone the entire game. Your opponent, a good opponent, is not going to let you do that, right? So RoboCop, he's kind of a scrub killer because low skill opponents really have a hard time dealing with this, but once you start facing people who know how to block correctly, then you really have to start getting in and using your kind of subpar close-up tools, right? So, if you're a player who loves getting giant 40% combos like Shao Khan and some of these other guys, RoboCop's not the character for you, right? He does very low damage for the most part. He only has two launchers that you're not going to hit with very often, just because they're not great launchers, right? So that's what I mean by hit and run characters. You're going to be doing a lot of like tiny hits, like 8% into a 13% command grab, into 7, 75 damage, but I'm plus 22, so now I can do that again. Here we go. Do it 3 times, deal 21%, right? So that's what I mean by hit and run characters. You're just going to be doing a ton of these tiny little hits to open your opponent up. All right, and it works. You can win matches with it. You have to work a little harder than other characters, I would say. All right. But luckily, he's got a lot of strengths that kind of serve that purpose. All right. So first off is his movement speed. So even beyond his dashes, like his forward speed and backward walk speeds are both pretty solid. Like when you're just walking towards your opponent, it's really scary for them because of your advancing tools, your dash, right? So you can really use your dash to add a ton of range to your attacks. And really, if you have the command grab equipped, it's every single time you dash, it's a guess between that grab or between something like that, right? And you can see there, 15%, here we go, 19%, 1 bar is about the damage you're going to be getting most of the time with RoboCop. All right, so other than his excellent movement, he does have very strong zoning, of course, depending on what loadouts you take. You do have to take this low shot to really get his zoning going, because it's a mid-hitting projectile, so you kind of have to deal with it. And that's what gives RoboCop this kind of full-screen presence, and is probably his biggest strength, is that no matter where you are on the screen, RoboCop is a threat, right? You almost always have to be the one coming to him instead of the other way around, because he's got, well, it's not coming out, but, all these fairly fast full-screen projectiles, right? As far as his stagger game goes, he does have some decent staggers, and again, a lot of the stuff is very good on hit advantage that meshes well with his command grab if you take the command grab. Um, 7 frame down one, pretty good. 8 frame standing one is all right, but like this string is so good for staggering. You can do that kind of stuff. And again, all of the staggers are really enhanced by his command grab if you take that. All right, so a decent stagger game. Again, if you take the command grab, is a mid-hitting command grab, so it can't be crouched. They have to jump it, which is huge, and we're going to cover that really in depth here in a little bit. But yeah, so that's a really strong option. He gets a lot of unbreakable damage. Not to say that he gets a lot of damage, but the damage that he does get is usually unbreakable. Like especially if you take flamethrower, usually you're doing stuff like this into a standing reset for 20% damage, but they can't break it, and you're at massive advantage afterwards, right? So you're kind of linking together these advantageous situations with RoboCop. That's kind of how you have to play him. Let's see. And then, of course, the final big strength is he is RoboCop. Like, odds are, if you're playing this character, you're playing him because you're a fan of the character, not necessarily because you want to do well in Mortal Kombat 11, right? He's a guest character. If you like RoboCop, then you can have a lot of fun playing with him. Again, you have to work a little harder than with some other characters. So onto his weaknesses. The biggest one is definitely going to be his low damage, just because, again, that's 8% right there. And you can do a little bit more. Like here in the corner, I can end with a low shot to keep them standing, me at +4, and a little bit of extra damage there. But you still see that's still like 12% damage, 13% damage. We're talking like pre-patch Jade, right? So a lot of low damage. Your launchers, you got a high non-confirmable launcher, and you've got a slow mid that ends in a high launcher. And so it's you're not going to be launching your opponent a whole lot just to make a good read or get a good punish. And even when you do, I mean, look at that, almost 29% uh, one bar mid screen. It's not terrible, but it's not great, especially for that launcher, right? So overall, you're going to be doing low damage, and honestly, just not comboing your opponent a ton. It's mostly just going to be, again, these kind of hit and run tactics. This little hits here, back off, zone a little, wait for him to come in, use your dash, right? Um, if you like doing combos, you're going to have a really bad time with RoboCop. He just does not have combos. It's all, again, just keeping people standing unless you manage to hit with one of your kind of lackluster launchers. Right, so 24% one bar off an 18 frame mid into a high. So yeah, definitely some weaknesses there. As a consequence of his low damage, you always have to deal with your opponent's fatal blow. It's almost impossible for RoboCop to take someone from beyond 30% health to no health, right? Like he just doesn't do enough damage, except in the corner. And even then, it's pretty tight. So unlike Lau and Garrus and some of these people that can really just stomp the fatal blow right out of you before you ever have access to it, RoboCop cannot do that. You are always going to have to deal with your opponent's fatal blow, which is a major downside. The other issue is he's a high risk, low reward character. And what I mean, so let's take someone like Shao Khan, right? So Shao Khan, he's not a great character. He's been improved in the latest patch, but he has to take a lot of risks. The good thing about Shao Kahn is that when his risks succeed, he really takes some damage out of you. He's going to do 30 to 40% of your health bar every time he risks that shoulder charge, right? RoboCop has to take similar risks, but he doesn't get that damage. With RoboCop, your risk is going for your mid command grab if you take it, or try and confirm into flamethrower on block, or some of these other kind of crazy tactics that you're going to have to use with RoboCop, right? So every time you go in for that command grab, at most, I can get 16%, but if your opponent reads that and does jump, they're going to full combo punish you, right? So you're risking these little 13% and 16% hits for a full combo. It can be worth it. You are going to open up your opponent a lot with like the command grab and things like that. But to understand, again, you're going to have to open up your opponent 6 or 7 times, even up to 10 times per match, whereas they still only have to open you up 3 or 4 times to win, right? And I will say the final aspect of RoboCop is that he's a toxic character. Like he brings toxicity out of people, and part of that is because he's such a scrub killer that these low skill opponents just can't deal with him. And a lot of people, they think when you pick him that you're just gonna stand there and you're just gonna zone all day, and that you're gonna spam back forward one, right? And so he just brings out a lot of toxicity, which is just not great. But yeah, so that's kind of and of course the final thing is if you look at our health values at the top there, you see Terminator has 1,000 health, RoboCop has 1,100 health, so he does have an extra 100 health tacked on, which is nice. It's made a difference in a lot of matches. But yeah, so that's about all there is to RoboCop. Just kind of a high health hit and run character that requires a little bit more work than your average character.